Welcome to Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, where our goal is to keep you informed, inspired, and a little entertained on all things diabetes. The information contained in this program is based on the experience and opinions of the Integrated Diabetes Services clinical team. Please discuss any changes to your treatment plan with your personal healthcare provider before implementing.
Welcome to Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast. I'm your host, Gary Scheiner, owner and clinical director of Integrated Diabetes Services. And I am ecstatic to have a special guest with me today, Victor Van Beuren, who is Director of Book Operations for the American Diabetes Association. Welcome, Victor.
Hey, Gary. It's so good to see you.
Hey, you too. I mean, I still recall, for me, the early days of diabetes books going back over 40 years. Right after my diagnosis, I went to the mall and to the bookstore in the mall, found myself a Joslin Diabetes manual that explained all about what diabetes is and how to manage and treat it. Read it cover to cover. And then I started getting the ADA's magazine, Diabetes Forecast. Shortly after that, I saved the first one that I ever got. It happened to have Bret Michaels on the cover.
Yeah, he was an outstanding spokesman.
Which was pretty inspirational to me, being a hardcore rock and roller and had an electric guitar back in the day and everything. Remind me, do you play an instrument?
I do. I play a few.
What do you play?
In fact, well, it's funny, a guitar, mandolin, but the instrument that I actually play the best, and I don't embarrass myself by playing it, is harmonica.
Neat. It's kind of making a comeback these days. A lot of people are getting into harmonica.
It really is, and there's some outstanding players out there. And I'd like to put myself in that category, but I don't think I can. No, but I have a band
to blowing a good harp.
Well, it really is. There really is. But I have a band, and we play probably about 3 or 4 paying gigs a month. So it's kind of fun.
Neat.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you to the point of being director of book operations at the ADA.
Well, we should have a background music of the Beatles and the Long Winding Road. It's an interesting career. It all makes sense when you kind of connect it. But if you take bits and pieces, you kind of scratch your head. My first career is I'm a geologist, and I studied at the University of Cincinnati, the University of Utah, the University of Texas at Austin, sedimentology and stratigraphy. And my specialty, all my research was in fine grain deposition, shales, siltstones, and mudstones. And I like to say that all the research I did is I made mud pies and then analyzed them. When I finished grad school, my first job was a petroleum geologist for Atlantic Richfield. So I did that for a while. I enjoyed it. I tell you, once you get geology in your veins, it never leaves. It's the most interesting science. It's an applied science, but it's incredibly interesting because it gives you a view of the earth that really few people have.
So how did publishing come your way? Well,
I decided that just the way things work, I felt more interested. I love the science, and I learned a lot about communication, a lot about how to convey information, both to science peers, but also explaining complicated ideas to mostly my family. And of course, they would run out of the room as when I started talking about geology. But I started publishing in 1985. So I've been doing it for 40 years now, all scholarly publishing. And that was
the year I was diagnosed. What was your first publication that you worked on?
I have it here. This is one. I can never tell if it's reading right.
Glacius Rock Atlas. I know I'm mispronouncing it.
You're really close to that. That was a book I did with Springer Verlag when I worked for them. But what happened is that at the time, the domestic oil bubble burst. And so there weren't any jobs back in 1985 to get back into geology, at least with the majors. And the miners were kind of closed fists at the time. They just were pulling things in. So a good friend of mine, the wife of my thesis advisor at Cincinnati, she and I were good friends, and she actually did work for the American Association of Petroleum Geologists. And she called me up. She knew I was looking, and she said, "Hey, Victor, they're looking for a book editor. You'd be perfect for that job." And so I thought, well, that'd be interesting. And so I applied and got the job. Started out as a book editor. Within a month, I was director of publications for the association and ran their journals and their book program for a while. And then I got an offer for work with Springer Verlag in New York City, and did that. I worked for Elsevier for a number of years. And then my wife and I, our joke is that we moved to New York City as a couple, and we left with 2.5 kids, and got a job as the director of pubs for the American Geological Institute in Alexandria, Virginia, and then worked for a couple of other nonprofits, associations. Yeah, it was 20 years ago in 2005, hired on with the American Diabetes Association as a acquisition editor for professional content. I've been with ADA now for this is my 21st year, so it's been a long run.
So from geology to a geological publisher to ADA publishing.
Yeah. And it all transition. Well, it is all connected, and the main thing is that science communication, whether it's to professional scientists and researchers or consumers looking for information like yourself, you were desperate when you get diagnosed. You're desperate for information. All of that really is connected, and it's pretty much the same. What I learned in the physical sciences could easily be for communication and for presenting and getting information out to the professional and the consumer community. It really is the same within the medical publishing field. And so the only thing that you're challenged with is you have to learn a whole new list of acronyms. But beyond
I like
that,
what you said about, putting things in terms people can understand. I think that's the essence of teaching. It's taking information and putting it in terms people can understand, relate to, and apply.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, what we try to do in my business as a diabetes care and education specialist, but also as a writer. Some people write to entertain, some do it to just, share a story. Others do it to teach. I like to think mine's a kind of a combination of all three. And so the ADA has gone through some transition in its publishing. For a while, it was publishing consumer books as well as books for the healthcare professional. And for a while, they were just doing the healthcare professionals, now transitioning back to consumer publishing. So what's going to be your first project in the consumer field once that's up and rolling again?
It has been quite the journey. And it's something that quite honestly happens within associations. When you have changes in management, you have changes in vision. So that is applied, those visions are applied to what the activities of the association. So we did have a period when we were doing both consumer and a long period we were doing both consumer and professional pubs, a period of just like 5 years now recently of doing just professional publications. But we've been given the go-ahead to bring consumer books back, and I'm elated because that is such an important part of our community, is to communicate to people with diabetes or their loved ones, to give them information on how to deal with the diagnosis and then how to structure their lives in ways that are not strange and weird, but familiar and comfortable and organized. The first project we're working on bringing cookbooks back, because that has always been a very important part of the ADA portfolio, and they're so important. And people love recipes, but nutrition is such an important part of dealing with diabetes and living with diabetes, that helping people learn how to cook with good ingredients that are healthy, and then give them tools to be able to plan meals, so they're not desperate and they're not stuck in
having that nutrient information is pretty important, especially for those of us who take insulin, have to match the insulin to the carb counts in those foods. I'm not a chef. I wish I had creative recipes to share. Do a heck of a barbecue. I make really good popcorn on the stovetop, but those probably don't warrant the kind of books you're putting together. Anything you cook?
Well, in my house, if I'm hungry and I want to eat something, then I need to cook it. I'm sort of the designated chef, and that's just fine. I can't say I eat a lot of everything, and but I try to balance as much as I can. And that's, I mean, I think that's the key, is just to know that there are nutritious foods out there and that you really do need to incorporate those into meals to create variety, which keeps your interest in eating. And I think that's exciting. I'll give a plug real quick. One of the great resources that that ADA has provided is something called the Diabetes Food Hub. Diabetes Food Hub, oneword.org. And it's a free service, but if you register, let me back up. It's a repository of about, I think, around 700 recipes at the moment, but it's growing.
We'll be sure to put that in the show notes.
Well, thank you. And I think it's an amazing service. It provides a variety of cuisines, of recipes from different cultures. There are recipes in Spanish. All of them are analyzed for the nutritional information. As I said, it's free, but if you register, you can actually save recipes that you really like. And then there's a meal planning service where you can actually take those favorite recipes and put them into a week of meals. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack. And you can do that just not only for 1 week, but you can do it for many weeks. It creates grocery lists. So when you go to the store, you don't overspend. And there are cooking demonstrations so that you can learn. For me, learning how to boil water was a very important part of my culinary training.
Yeah.
But it's a great service. And it's the type of thing that can really help people relax about nutrition and understanding how to create a nutritious meal for themselves and also
resource.
Family members.
And people probably come to you all the time with book ideas. And I was no different. I probably came to you 7-8 years ago with an idea for a book about CGM, which was sort of in its, not infancy, but just starting to come into its own. There you go. I got the back cover. Yeah. So you and I worked together on Practical CGM. I had some other creative ideas for the title, like OJ at 3 a.m. I thought that would have been a fun title. But, it was a book mainly for healthcare providers about how to interpret CGM data and how to coach patients on how to use the devices effectively. Nowadays, it seems like books have given way to podcasts and blogs and websites. And do you feel that book publishing is dead, or is it just taken on other forms, or does it still have a life? Does it still have a pulse?
It has a pulse. It's active. It's running around. No, it's not dead by any means. It has taken other forms, and the forms that it's taken has really been based on matching the tools and the interest of consumers, of both professional and the consumer audience. So publishers now need content that can be displayed on a variety of devices, can be listened to and watched on podcasts, can be downloaded and part of audio files, that type of thing. Publishing, when you say that, many people immediately think of books, printed books. But publishing is really the process of writing, acquiring, collating, editing, indexing content that people within a certain segment of the community want to read and want to understand, use that material to understand a topic more completely. So publishing is not dead by any means. It's just different formats.
Okay. With some of the formats, with people often self-publishing or publishing through medically oriented publishers, how do you know what you can trust? There's a lot of question and a debate out there about that. People with diabetes are often looking for information and anywhere they can get it. So what should someone look for if they want to know they're getting information from a trustworthy source?
Word from our sponsor. Byram Healthcare understands that managing diabetes isn't one size fits all. With a full range of CGMs, insulin pumps, and diabetes supplies from top brands, Byram makes it easy to get what you need, hassle-free, shipped right to your door. And Byram's team of experts helps navigate insurance so you can focus on living your best life. Ready for better diabetes care? Visit byramhealthcare.com/podcast or call 866-692-8024 and select option 3. And now back to our program.
Well, you have to do your research. And there's a real difference in many ways of reading a story, reading fiction, as opposed to getting information about a particular topic, like how I've been diagnosed with diabetes. What do I do? And so you can enjoy a good story, but you also need reliable sources to give you information about a particular question that deals with you directly, whether it's physical health, whether it's mental health, whether it's trying to understand where resources are. So you need to do your research, and you want to go to sources that you can trust, like the CDC or NIH or the International Diabetes Federation. If you go to those sources, you know that the information has been vetted by panels of experts. So you don't need a degree to really understand how to deal with a particular question about the diabetes. You really need to look for sites that have experts who have been researching and collating and discussing and then presenting recommendations on how to deal with particular issues with the disease. You have to do your research. You can't just have, for topics, everyone might have their favorite author, but for topics that are so inclusive and important dealing with your health, you just really need to get a variety of sources, compare the information, and then from there you can make informed decisions.
The American Diabetes Association would fall into that category where material is reviewed and vetted before it's published.
Yes, I would totally agree. And the site, both the diabetes.org and professionaldiabetes.org, they have different audiences, but the information is available to everyone. And the information is vetted. Everything on the ADA sites comply with the ADA standards of care.
I'm contacted often by people who have ideas for books or for material that they want to publish in some way. So what options are out there now for people who have a story to tell or valuable information to share?
Well, there are a lot more than there used to be. In the past, if someone wanted to publish a book, the only option was to go to a commercial publisher. And that's still an option. It can be a good one. But now there are options available, tools available to self-publish. And self-publishing is having either a printed book in hand or some type of video file that is presented on a web page. The important thing is that getting to the audience that you intend to talk to. And in the past, rely on the marketing team at a commercial publishing house or an association publishing house. But now you can actually have tools to be able to do that. And an example would be the explosion of platforms like TikTok or Instagram, where you have these influencers who, some of them are kind of silly and a little bit egotistical, but there is good information that you can glean from many of those.
Are there any in particular that have given you a good chuckle?
Well, a chuckle and a scare with some of the information that's coming out about questioning the validity and the expertise of some of the panels at CDC and NIH. To me, I find that it's turned into quite the palm to forehead moment many times.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear these officials stating something that you absolutely know just by what we've learned through our communities and read through our community publications, are simply not true. So sometimes you have to laugh and not so you don't cry. I'm not partial to, but because my wife has cats, I usually look for cat little reels and show it to her and laugh. But it is something that it's a real option now, and it's not a defeat to self-publish by any means. But you do have to do it. You have to really put some effort into making it happen. If you self-publish, don't try to do everything yourself. Just don't. Get someone to review the content you have. Get someone to copy edit it. Get someone to help get a good illustrator to really help convey the points you're making visually. So you have to really use those tools to create a publication that actually is effective and can be helpful to the community you're targeting. You do need to put effort into marketing, whether you send emails out to a list that you've been able to construct, or the important thing is in any type of self-publishing and self-marketing is you have to have a dynamic and active website. You can't put up a website and then just ignore it and not change anything. You really do need You need to have change the videos, put in demonstrations, put in comments, and do that absolutely on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis. And the main reason for that is the people that are watching subscribe to your website will appreciate that. But also you have to remember that there are non-people looking at your site. And these web bots will go out and they are going to be attracted to sites that have changed. So if someone does a search on diabetes or does a search on Mediterranean diet and has recipes there, and you've put up new recipes, it's more likely that that link will be part of someone's research, the searching results. So you have to stay dynamic. I've known a number of people who have published, self-published successfully, but it does require some effort. If your goal was just to provide a Christmas gift to your family and neighbors saying, this is my book, you've accomplished that. But if you really want to go out and be an advocate and really a strong force within the community, you have to put some effort into it. Publishing, one more comment, publishing commercially is not out of the question. Books like yours, Gary, are really important. And if you do provide based on your experience as a person with diabetes, but also as an educator, then you can make a book part of your operation, your brand, and that can be very helpful. Like the book you did on how to health, the one that we did a few years ago with ADA, but also your book on Think Like a Pancreas it just resonates. People are looking for that type of information. There is a story in there, but it's information on how people can get beyond the diagnosis and thrive. So there are personal stories are rarely published by commercial outfits, but self-help guidebooks and other books similar to that are still are sought after by commercial houses. But your cover letter has to be explicit. You have to do your research. You have to identify a market. You have to do all of those things in your cover letter. And you don't need an extensive proposal, but you need to really outline the book project that you envision and you would like them to take on.
Well, that's gold, and that's coming from the head of book operations at the American Diabetes Association. So anybody who's thinking about writing a book and putting something out there, listen. I don't know if you saw, I just did a finger stick because I feel low, but my sensor was saying I was in the 80s. The meter said I was in the 50s. So I'm popping some tablets as we speak. So anything I say, you got to take with a grain of glucose because it may not make any sense at all after the fact. If somebody is interested in putting their own book out there, you said that the marketing effort is obviously going to have to come from you since you don't have a publisher behind it. Specific ideas you can recommend from a marketing standpoint?
You have to have a title that's a hook that would get it. I mean, I think Like a Pancreas is probably one of the best titles because it catches the reader somewhat off guard, but it conveys what needs to be done. And so I think a title is important. And that's one of the hardest things to create for a book. And we always do it after the fact. We have working titles, but the titles that we come up with at 88 Books, we discuss them with a number of people together in a row. And we just...
What makes a good title, in your opinion?
Well, one way is to surprise people with the title. It's like if you can have very bland titles that just describe into too much detail about the content of the book. Now, a title like that could be good for a professional publication, but it's really not good for a consumer book. You really do need to have a hook. You need to get someone to read the title and go, wait a minute, and then go back and read it again, because there was something in there that was unusual. And I still come back to your title of Think Like a Pancreas, because that catches people off guard. They go, what do you mean? And so they'll go back and they'll look at it again. And then they'll look at the description that you have for the book, whether it's a website, whether it's back cover copy, and pulling the book off the shelf at Barnes & Noble or Books A Million. So that's important. The other thing is just to, as I mentioned, is to make sure that you don't want to have encyclopedic information on describing the book. You really just want to go and talk about who should read it, and give them information about the content of the book. You don't even have to list the table of contents. Sometimes it helps, but you don't have to necessarily do that. But you can just give them information on what the reader will get when they purchase the book.
I've seen people make very creative use of subheadings to accomplish that, where they'll have that attention-grabbing, catch the reader off guard kind of title, and then a subhead that describes what the book is about and who it's for. Do you subscribe to that approach?
We do, because it's a way within the title to describe the book, but it can't be long. It has to be very, very, not necessarily short or cryptic, but it can't be a long subtitle, because what you want to do is you want to lead people to the description of the book, and not, because that really will help them more than trying to figure out the content of the book through the subtitle. But if you give them little bullet points, that can help.
Okay. So looking back, you've had a fairly long and distinguished career in the publishing world, starting in the geology field and eventually winding up in diabetes. How do you feel about your career choice? Do you think you're doing the right thing for you, or you think you would have been better off choosing a different path?
No, you deal with circumstances in all of our lives. We come to forks in the road.
Like the Green Day song, another fork in the road.
Fork in the road. And you make decisions on which, if you go left or right, or stand there. And so my feeling as I look back is I was so intrigued with communicating ideas. And whether I did that as a teacher or as I've done it now as a publisher, I feel like I fulfilled my wishes in terms of career. Mainly, I think the idea for me is I would recommend this for anyone in any career, but in publishing certainly, and a writer too, I would recommend, is I love listening. I love to listen to stories. I love to listen to the real stories of people and what they've gone through. And so I think it really helps, if you're a publisher, to be empathetic and to understand and really appreciate someone's willingness to tell you their story. That you have to have a deep appreciation for that. You really do. And that's pretty helpful. But I need to remind everyone, publishing is a business. Publishing is a business. And so you have to find the right publisher or the right platform to convey your story, your information. Sometimes publishers can, the timing is great and you hit them right when they're looking for your book. Other times they're not. And it's not because the book is not good. It's just that it's a business, and that they're investing in this publication, and they don't see the ability to make their money back for that in that particular time. It does not mean that the writing is bad. It's not the right time. So just that little aside there, but as I said, I really love to hear people's stories.
Well, I know from my own personal experience working directly with you, as well as people I speak with in the field, that you are really good at what you do, and on so many levels. I hope you're happy doing what you do. I know those two don't always happen at the same time, but you deserve to be happy with what you're doing, and I hope you are.
I appreciate it. I'm a little embarrassed, but I appreciate that comment, and that makes me feel good. I mean, only because that's what I've been trying to do all along. And one of the things that I love doing, and I'm going to be absolutely frank and candid with people up front, because I don't want to lead them down the road with false expectations if I know that they have something that we simply can't publish. But what I have done in the past, I've tried, and I've been successful a few times, is act as a sounding board for the idea and help folks. And I don't mind doing this at all. I've considered a major part of my job is to help people hone their proposal. Craft a cover letter.
If someone has a book idea, can they reach you through the American Diabetes Association?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to do that, because I figured that's part of my job of trying to help people fulfill their interests, sometimes their dreams.
You're mentoring the next generation of great writers.
I would love to think that, and I do think that. And because in my opinion, everyone has a book inside them. Everyone. And the question is, do they have the time and the patience to make it a reality? It doesn't always, you can find that reality, but it does take some effort, and it takes encouragement, and it takes, and you learn. No one has ever published their first draft. But the issue really is that it does require, it requires a team, and the team doesn't have to be large, but I really love doing that. And I'm more than happy to do that. I'll be very frank. If I don't have time, I'll let people know, but I usually can find the time to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really makes you special, Victor. And thank you so much for all the insight and wisdom you've shared. Clearly, publishing is more than just printed material nowadays. It's audio, it's electronic, the formats vary. But regardless of what format people use, trust is important. People need to be able to trust what you're putting out there. So you have to consider the medium that you're using, utilize editing services where possible, and consider using co-authors that bring reputation to what you're doing. And if you do decide to self-publish, the marketing is going to be extremely important as well. Otherwise, no one's going to know. It's that tree that falls in the forest and no one hears it. So that's going to require some work and some planning. And it's probably some good books out there on book marketing, I imagine. So those are some things people can look for as well.
There are, but I do appreciate your thoughts, Gary, and it's a pleasure to work with you. It's always, and because there's an excitement, and there are recognized goals, and there's never, I always think about it as going on a hike up a mountain. You're not going to make the top the first day. You've got benchmarks along the way, and these benchmarks, you stop and think about what you've done and how you can then learn from that so you can go to the next benchmark. And eventually you'll reach your goal. But it does take some time, and it takes organization, but it takes encouragement.
Very well put. Well, again, thank you, Victor. We will have the links that you mentioned during our discussion in the show notes. And I'm Gary Scheiner, reminding everyone out there to keep thinking like a pancreas.
Thanks for tuning in to Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast is brought to you by Integrated Diabetes Services, where experience meets expertise, passion meets compassion, and diabetes care is personal because we live it too. Our team of clinicians, all living with type 1 diabetes, understands the challenges firsthand. We're here to help no matter where you are in the world. From glucose management to self-care strategies, the latest tech, sports and exercise, weight loss, type 1 pregnancy, and emotional well-being, we've got you covered. We offer consultations in English and Spanish via phone, video chat, email, and text. Want to learn more? Visit integrateddiabetes.com or email info@integrateddiabetes.com to schedule a consultation. On behalf of Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, I'm Gary Scheiner, wishing you a fantastic week ahead, and don't forget to think like a pancreas.